Hey, in this video, I'm going to show a fairly straightforward walking meditation technique, what I call deconstructed walking. So I'll show the technique and then I'll talk a bit about when and why we might use it. So we can use it for a traditional kind of mindfulness practice, or there's some very real reasons biomechanically that we might use it in physical therapy. So here's the technique. And if you're not sold on meditation in general, stay with me. There still might be reasons that you would want to use this. But ideally, you have a longer runway to walk than I do here in my office. But if you just have a short place to pace a bit, that can work just fine. Start with eyes open. I call it deconstructed walking because we're going to pause at each part of the walking gait cycle. Meaning, I'm going to pause when one leg is in the air, as if it's moving forward. And then I'm going to pause as my heel gently touches the ground. I'm going to bring my foot to flat as my heel comes up in the back, and I'm going to pause there. And then I'm going to pause with leg in the air. And now I'm back to repeating the cycle on the other side. And I'm just going to move through part by part, kind of each piece of the walking gait. I'm breaking it down. And if you mess up or forget what each of these individual parts are, no worries. Just throw some pauses into different periods of your walking gait, trying to be intentional and focusing on what you feel. So once you get the rhythm down, we want to then hone in on what we feel, meaning what does the ground feel like underneath us? What muscles are engaging? What muscles are relaxing? Am I breathing? Am I holding my breath? Is there tension in places that maybe don't need to hold tension? Am I wobbly anywhere? Can I do this with less effort? Are my shoulders hunched up? Take a deep breath. Exhale. Can I time my movements with my breathing? Just play around with that. There's no right or wrong answer to any of these questions, but we're using this very slow, deconstructed walking. So I got the heel on the ground. My foot is up. My foot's flat. My heel's up in the back. My leg is off the ground. I'm balancing. My heel is on the ground. Foot up. Whole foot on the ground. Back heel up. Other leg in the air. I'm now balancing. And then I'm right back where I started with heel on the ground. If you feel comfortable and safe, not too wobbly, then give this a try with your eyes closed. The balance part is going to be a whole lot harder. So if you're near something, a wall, you can run a finger along it. You can have a trekking pole for maybe a little light support. Or you can try looking around, look up at the sky, check out the horizon, look off to your left, look off to your right. So you're just kind of playing around with this as you're maybe doing some deep relaxed breathing. And if there's an area of your body that constantly is tight or stiff or uncomfortable, maybe tune into that body or that area of the body as you go. So if your low back is always tight or tight as you walk, maybe you'll just kind of tune in and see with your breathing, can you just let that area settle? So there's times that we want tension. This is not one of them. So I want you to move through this as fluidly as you can and as relaxed as you can. The other thing is that if there's an area of the body that kind of maybe doesn't feel like it moves well, like sometimes I have people tell me that it just doesn't feel right when I walk, or I feel like my walking gait is off. Often that happens because our cyclical motion of walking happens more or less automatically. The mechanisms that control walking are actually not, most of them aren't even in our brain and our spinal cord. So unless we really hone in on it, we don't have as much conscious control over our walking. It's a kind of a action and a reaction as we interact with the ground, but that can lead things to maybe move in a way that doesn't feel right. If we're moving around an injury, if we've had pain in the past, that can change how we move, and that sticks with us after the pain is healed. And so sometimes just by slowing things down, we can just feel what wants to engage, maybe when it doesn't need to. So in physical therapy, sometimes I'll use this drill as I'm trying to normalize how somebody walks, maybe after an injury or a surgery. If somebody's having pain when walking, often we can slow it down and they can maybe feel, oh, I was engaging there. My leg came behind me and I didn't have to, or I was pulling my toes up really hard and I didn't have to do that. Or I was swinging my leg out for some reason. And actually, maybe that was because of an old injury and I don't need to do that anymore. Or maybe just by slowing down, it lets the brain settle and there's a less of a protective tension throughout the body, a variety of different reasons. And so there's times we hone in on really focused biomechanics and movement mechanics, but sometimes the body can be self-correcting if we give it time and space and awareness to do so. One thing that I do find to be helpful, that seems to be a common pattern along a lot of ways that our walking gait can deviate from what we might want, is the feet not being straight is one of them. So there's three I'm going to show you with the feet not being straight. So I'm going to cue you just as you work through this, if you want to, and it feels right, to try to work with your feet totally straight the whole time rather than toed in, or normally I see toed out. That's number one, aim for feet straight. Number two is our toes help us interact with the ground. So when your foot's on the ground, I want you to gently press the toes, not curling or clawing, almost like you're trying to get them down and flat. So I want you aware of your toes. It's an area of the body we're often disconnected from. And maybe a little more pressure through the ball of the foot and the big toe than the pinky toe. So that's where we get a lot of our stability and balance from. So number one, feet straight. Number two, aware and gently pressing with the toes when the foot is on the ground. And then number three is the toes are relaxed when the foot is in the air. Sometimes we see something that's called toe extensor substitution. It's when the toes really pull up and it pulls the foot slightly outward and it everts it and it can kind of throw off, or it's called swing phase. And that can be in response to some instability when it's on the ground, a variety of different reasons. But as I want the toes pressing down on the ground, but then relaxed as your foot's off the ground, and we're still pulling the foot up, but we're using a muscle called the anterior tibialis, which helps to control the foot and the arch of the foot without overusing the toes. So those are the only three if you want to think about the technique. If that was like, hey, that's too complex, or I just want to focus on being present, totally fine. But if you want to go a little more into the mechanics of this deconstructed walking, when the feet straight, toes gently pressing into the ground, and then toes relaxed as you come off. So play around with it. It can be a great tool for just relaxation, for tuning into the body, for mindfulness, and there's a ton of good reasons for that most people by now have heard of something in that regard. But also it can help us to repattern how we walk after pain or injury, and that can be really helpful because in a lot of ways it's hard to change gait mechanics. So of course, do what feels comfortable for you, but play around with it and be kind of playful with it. Don't be rigid. Don't look for tension. Even the three kind of checkpoints that I said, don't hold on to those super tight. Just have them loosely in your mind. We want to have fluidity and curiosity as we do this. We don't want rigidity and a white knuckling trying to do it right. Typically recommend we do it for at least 3 or 4 minutes, but you could do it for longer. There's some practices that do a long walking meditation, and you just bring the mind back to refocus as the mind will drift. The mind will drift, and then we just bring it right back to the present and what is happening in the body. So go for as long as feels right for you, but usually I want at least 3 or 4 minutes to kind of settle in and see how it feels. So give it a shot and let me know what you think.